Hello guys, welcome back to this channel and thanks for viewing this video. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to design a website header like this one you can see on the screen here. So I have two parts. I have the navigation part. Here you can put the logo, and then on the right side of the navigation bar, you can put your navigation items. And down here, I have my slider. So for the navigation part, I'm going to be using Bootstrap. And then in the slider part, I'm going to be using the Carousel. So here is how my project is arranged. So make sure that you have your Bootstrap file. Okay, so I am storing my Bootstrap.css file in my CSS folder. And also make sure that you have downloaded the Carousel files as well. I have a video on this channel where you can see, the various details and steps on how you can use an Carousel. And the anime.css, I might not be using it because this is going to be for the animation. And here I'm using the font awesome, which is for the icons. And I also have the style.css, which is the file where I'm going to be writing all my CSS code. Okay. And down here, I'm having all the script files. So I have the proper.min.js, and I have my bootstrap.js file. I have the jQuery, which is useful in order to use the owl carousel. Okay, so just like I said, I have a video on owl carousel, how to use owl carousel in Bootstrap. So just visit this YouTube channel in order for you to see the details on that. And I also have my all.carousel.minify.js file, and I have my script.js where I'm going to write my JavaScript code to initialize the carousel. So I'm going to be showing you that in this video. So the first thing I'm going to start doing is to write my HTML code. Okay, so the HTML code is going to be looking like this. So I'm going to say header, and in the header, I'm going to say like this, and I can simply say row banner. All right. So inside my header, I'm going to copy and paste my Bootstrap version 5 navigation code. So you simply go on Bootstrap version 5 website and you click on components, and down here, you're going to have a link, navbar. So you simply click on navbar, and then when you scroll down, you will get code, right? So when I scroll down, I'll simply copy like this, click on copy. So it's going to copy the code, and I will come down here and paste it. All right. So this is the code we have copied from the Bootstrap version 5 website. So when I come and open my file in the browser, you will see that I'm going to get this nav bar on the screen. All right. So that's it. So now I need to change some few stuff here. So instead of container fluid, I'm going to say container like this. And my nav brand, instead of writing navbar, I'm simply going to write coding river. Okay. And I think that's it. All right. So the unordered list here, as you can see, I am having an unordered list. So when I save like this, if I come here and refresh, yeah, so this is how it is looking. So I want to place my nav item on the right side of the page. So I will say ms like this and save. All right, so I don't need the button and the search field. So I'm simply gonna remove that from here. That's it. I'm gonna come and refresh. Yeah, so this is how my code is looking like. So I can also remove these Bootstrap classes, and now I'm simply gonna say padding left on large screen, say 5, and padding left 0 like this. All right, and here I'm simply gonna, this is the first navigation item. I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to remove this second item. I'm going to save. I'm simply going to copy it. Let me cut it. And I will paste it down here. Okay. So right here, drop down. I'm going to say our offers. Okay, so this is going to be a drop down menu down here. So I'm simply going to leave it like this, but you can put whatever, you know, item you want here. All right, so down here I am going to change this. We'll say testimonials, right? And let me remove this. I'll copy this as well, and here I'll say blog and contact us. All right, so if I come here and refresh, so now you can see how my web page is looking like. So this is the navigation portion. So now we need to add the slider portion. As you can see here, we are having a nav bar, and then down we are having a navigation, a slider, and we're also having some text and a button. So that's what we're going to be doing right now. So I'm going to create a section. So by writing section tag, I'm going to say class home slider, and I will say how carousel. So for this how carousel to work, make sure that you have all the files here. Okay, you have the CSS how that carousel that minified, and you also have the jQuery as I showed you here, jQuery.js, and the owl that carousel that minified.js. Okay, everything must be linked to your web project for this to work. And I'm going to say div. I'm going to create a div, and I'll give it a class of slider item like this. And in this slider item, I'm going to create another div, say div, and class will be container. All right, I will have another div that I will say row, and I'm going to add some classes like this. Slider text, and inside I'm going to put some text. So I'm going to say span class, I will say title, cursive. So these are just classes I am adding, and I'm simply going to put some text here. So good and adorable dog, 2 years old, like this. Come back to my website and refresh. So this is not going to show because I have not yet initialized my carousel. All right, but I can add you know, in the text slider here, I can add some Bootstrap classes. I'll say align items center and save it like this. Well, what I can do is that I can have another div, and I will say column medium 6 and column small 12 like this, and I'm simply gonna copy this. Now I'm gonna cut it and paste it inside my column div, this, and I'm gonna say h1 needs a current parent. And so after I have done that, I will put a paragraph. So I'm simply gonna say lorem sum. So this is just gonna be some dummy text. I'm gonna add another paragraph, and in that paragraph I'm gonna add a link. So in that link I'm simply gonna say learn more, and so I can even add a class here. So that will be button primary. It's going to be the name given to the class. So up here, if I come up, I can add an image. So I'm simply going to say style background image and put my URL, and inside a URL I'm gonna specify the link to the image. So I'm gonna take this first image, bg1. So I have images that I have already put in a folder called images, so I'm gonna simply put it there. So that's it. So what I'm gonna do is simply copy this and paste it down like this, and then I'm gonna save. So if I want, I can change some wording right here. So I can say 3 years old, and I'll simply say nice and loving cat, something like that. I can also say need kind, or I can say an adorable parent, something like that. All right. and then I'm going to save. So now if I refresh, nothing is going to show because I have not yet initialized the carousel. Okay, so now let's start with the initialization of the carousel. So I already have my script.js file created, all right? So there's nothing inside. So you have to make sure that this file is linked right here in your index.html file, right? So now what I'm going to do here is that I'm going to initialize my slider, all right? So in order to initialize a slider, so I'm simply going to write slider initialization. So the code you need to write will be, so I'm going to say the class is home slider, and I guess that's how we called it. So if we come back to our index.html file, where did we start coding our carousel? That's here, and we called it home slider. Okay, so I'm going to say home slider how carousel. Okay, and inside I'm simply going to say loop true. Autoplay will also be true, so my slider is going to autoplay and it's going to loop around the slider items, and I can add some margin, say 10, and I'll say nav. So I want to make sure that the navigation buttons are also going to be showing, and I will say autoplay hover pause. So this is going to make sure that when I put my cursor on the slider item, it's going to stop autoplaying, all right? And I will say items. This is going to make sure that only one item, one slide item is going to show on the screen, and save. So if I come and refresh, there you can see we're having an image and we're having some text. So all this is going to be, fixed when I'm going to start coding my CSS. All right, so that's it. So I can also add some animation. So at the beginning, I didn't want to add animation, but now I think for this slider, we can add some cool animation. And for that, we need to use the animate.css file that we are linking here. So you can get that file in your Howl Carousel folder, right? You can get the animate.css file there. So we are going to say animate out. That will be fade out, and animate in. I'm going to simply put fade in. So now I need to put some icons. So I'm going to say nav text like this. And as I told you that for the icons, I'm going to use font awesome. So what I'm going to put here is going to be a small HTML code, and that code will be FA, FA chevron left. All right, and so I'm going to close this tag. Okay, and say comma, copy this and paste it, and simply change here. Instead of left, I'm going to say right. All right, so now the next thing I'm going to do is to make sure that my carousel or my slider is responsive. So I'm going to say responsive 0 equal like this, and I'm going to say items 1 and a nav false. So here I need to put a comma, like this. All right. Okay, so I'm going to copy this. Let me first put the comma, copy and paste and paste. Okay, and I'm going to say 600 and 1000. But as for this one, the navigation is going to be true. And I'm going to remove this comma. Let me save this. So then when I refresh, so as you can see, I'm having the navigation down here. So when I click, all right. So let me come back to my index.html and make sure that I'm having different pictures. So here is BG1, and for the second slider item, it must be BG2, like this. Okay, so when I click, when I refresh first, and if I click, you can see that there's change of image and a text. All right, so that's it for my carousel, the JavaScript part. So now I need to style it. So in the styling part here, I'm importing some fonts. So I have my Poppins. So this is the font I'm actually going to use, and I'm also going to be using this font Sacramento, and I'm just going to show you how it works. Okay, so now let's go and start by styling our anchor. So what I'm going to say here is going to be, I'm first going to say text decoration will be none, and so I will also say WebKit transition, yeah, or is transition. I'll copy this and paste it here and save. All right, so I'm going to also say anchor on hover. I will say text decoration will be none as well. So these are just some generic styling. So I'm going to say H1, H2 as well. If I also have some H3 or H4 or H5, I want a color to be black like this. Okay, so I guess we are good to go now. So the first thing I would want to style, what is that going to be? I guess I'm going to start with the header tag. So I would say header, the position will be relative, top 0, left 0 as well, width 100%, z index, I'll say 5 for it to show. That's it. Okay, when I refresh, so nothing really changed, but so after the header tag, I need to style my logo. So I will say header navbar brand and text transform. I will say uppercase, letter spacing 0.1 EM, font size 1.6 EM as well. I need a font weight as well, 500, and the font family, that will be Poppins. And later on, I will say color. I want it to be red. So this is the code of the color. When I come here and refresh, the color is not picking, so I'll say it's important. Okay, refresh, now it's picking. So you can also notice that my navbar is responsive, all right? So if I reduce, you can see now I'm having the toggler, and down here, that's what I'm having. Okay, so I can also say header, navbar brand, span, that will be color and important, and save. I can also say header navbar, and I will start by saying that the padding top is 0, padding bottom is also 0, but the background will be white, and I'll say that it's important. Okay, I actually want to increase that. I want it to be responsive, so I will say max width like this. Okay, so I'm going to paste this, simply going to say 0.5 rem and 0.5 rem like this. Okay, so now I'm going to style my nav link. So I would say nav bar and point nav link. So we put in 1.7 rem, 1 rem, and the outline will be none, and I will say that this is actually important. So the same thing, I want this to actually be responsive, so I'm going to remove that, copy that here, remove the outline, and save. That's it. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say header navbar point nav link active. So then I'm going to say color will be red and save. Let me come and refresh. Nothing is showing. I need to go to my index here. Okay, I have the active class, so I need to say important. Refresh. Okay, now the color is picking. So I also need to style my drop down menu. So I'm going to say header navbar drop down menu. So that will say font size 14 pixels, border radius 10 pixels, border none. I'm gonna say WebKit box shadow. So that will say 0, 2 pixels, 30 pixels, and 0 pixels. I need to color it. So I'll say 0, 0, 0, 0.2. So I'm gonna copy this and then simply say box shadow like this. this. Okay, and I'm going to say minimum width 13 EM, and also make sure that the margin top is minus 10 pixels. So that's it. So when I save, I refresh, yeah, as you can see, we have the border radius that is taken, and all right, so let me come back here. Simply gonna copy, paste, and I'm gonna remove this, and right here I'm gonna say before. So what I'm gonna say, bottom 100%, left maybe 10%, border maybe solid transparent, say content, and the height will be 0, the width 0 as well, and the position will be absolute. Pointer events, I would say none. Border bottom color will be white, and the last one I would say border width, that will be 10 pixels. Let me refresh. Okay, now you can see everything is looking nice for my drop down menu. Okay, and I can add some more stuff. I will simply say header, that nav bar, that drop down menu, that drop down item, colon, hover, and background with this. So the color, the white as well. Then save. What else I'm gonna do is copy, paste, and now instead of hover, I'm gonna say active. So that will be that active. So I will keep the same background color and the same color. So that's it for the navigation portion. So now we are going to start styling our carousel. So the first thing we are going to do is to add some styling to our section. So I'm going to say that section like this, and I'm simply going to add some padding. So that will be padding, I will say 7 EM 0 like this. And I'm also going to add some opacity to my carousel items. So that will be our carousel, that our item, and I will say opacity. So 0.4, I think. And I'm going to copy this down here, and I will say for the carousel item that is going to be active, I will say that its opacity must be 1, and then I will save. So let me come back to here. When I refresh, so we won't see pretty much any difference. So it's now time for me to style the navigation control. Okay, so what I'm going to say, that will be our carousel, and I'm going to add this class our nav. So I want my navigation controls to be on top of the image of the carousel item. So the position will be absolute, and I will say top 50%, and then the width I will say 100%. So I will continue. So I'm gonna give some styling to the individual controls. So the preview button, so that will be our preview like this, and I'm gonna do the same thing for the other button. That is going to be the next button. So like this. Let me remove this. So what am I going to keep? I'm going to say that the position of these two buttons must also be absolute. So the margin top, I'm sorry, down here, I'll say margin top will be minus 10 pixels. And I'm going to add some transform property. So I'll say WebKit transform. I will say translate. Why? And that will be minus 50%. So add the MS transform, and that will be the same thing, translate Y minus 50% as well. And then I'm going to say transform will also be translate Y minus 50%. Okay, so now I have to save this, come back to here, refresh. So now, as you can see, the navigation controls are now at the top of my slider item. So what else we can add? We are going to add some styling to our buttons. So what I'm going to do is to say, I'll copy this. When I paste it here, and I'm going to say hover like this, and I will also copy paste, and I will say focus. Okay, and I'm can add another one that will be for active, something like that. All right, so I'm gonna do the same thing for the next button. So that will be here, instead of prev, I will say next. Down here as well, next, and here I will also say next. So in here I'm simply gonna write outline. I don't want any outline for these buttons whenever I click on them, or whenever I focus, or whenever any button is active. So I don't want any outline. All right, because as you can see here, when I click on the button, we have a sort of outline around the button. So I don't want that. So when I refresh, you will see that whenever I click, I'm not gonna get any outline. All right, so when I click here, there's no outline on the button. That's it. I can also increase the font size of these buttons. So what I am going to do, let me simply copy one of these. When I copy, and I will simply paste it here. So I'm going to remove this focus, but instead I'm going to add pan colon before. All right, so that's it. And I'm going to do the same thing for the next button. So here I'm going to say next. So all I'm going to do here is to say that the font size must be equal to 40 pixels. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so for now you will see that all the buttons are going to be positioned on the left of the screen. So I need to arrange that. I want my next button to be on the right side and my previous button to be on the left side. So how to do that? I'm going to say how carousel, and I'll say the other class will be owl nav. Okay, and now I'm going to pick the class of the button. So the first button I'm going to do will be the previous button. Okay, and I'm simply going to write left because I want it to be on the left. I will say left 30 pixels, something like that. So this is going to bring some margin from the left. Okay, so as you can see, I'm having some margin. I can enforce that by saying that it's important, something like that. And I'm also going to do the same thing for the next button. So here I'm going to say next, and instead of left, here I will say right, because I want my left button to be on the right side of the screen. And then when I refresh like this, it's not picking. So as you can see, my next button is not going on the right. There's definitely something wrong in the code here. So write 30 pixels, important. Let me review my code. Okay, I guess here is the problem. So instead of writing that owl next, I wrote that owl previous. So I'm simply going to write next here and save it, so that when I refresh here, you will see that the next button will be on the right side of my web page. So that's it concerning the buttons, the navigation buttons. So now I'm going to come back to the buttons later on. Now I'm going to start with the styling of the dot. Okay, so I'm going to say our carousel, our dot, like this, and in here I'm simply going to say text align, and I'm going to say center. Okay, then the next thing will be our carousel, that our dots, that our dot. Okay, for the single dot, so this I'm going to do like this. Inside I'm going to say width will be 10 pixels, and definitely the height will also be 10 pixels. As for the margin, I would say 5 pixels, and then the border radius will be 50%, so that the background I will give it this color A6, yeah, so a grayish color. So the next thing I'm gonna give some styling whenever a particular dot is active. Okay, so I'm going to say dot, all right, and our dot active. So for this one, I will say background. I want it to be red, so I will take this color. Okay, that's it for my dots. So when I refresh, you can see that I'm having the dots right here. Okay, so now let's start with the slider items. But before I do the slider items, I'm going to slide the our carousel in general. So I'm going to say home slider, and Z index will be 1, and the position will be relative like this. So when I save, I am also going to say our carousel, that home slider, no, sorry, and that our nav. So opacity will be 0, and the visibility will be hidden. So I'm also gonna add some transition. So the visibility hidden here is going to hide the navigation control. I'm also going to give some styling that will allow me to show the navigation controls whenever we put the cursor on the slider item. But I'm gonna do that later. So let me first add some transition. So that will be WebKit transition like this. That will be 3.3 all is. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I'm simply gonna copy and paste and try to change some few steps. So here instead of WebKit, I'm gonna say O. Okay, and down here I'm simply gonna say transition. So I can also add some color to the navigation buttons. So that will be home slider, that our nav, and I will say button. Then the color will be white, FFF, then save. So when I come here, you will see that the navigation controls are not showing because we said that the visibility must be hidden. That's what we said here. So now, if we want to show these navigation buttons, we need to specify it here, some properties. So that will be our carousel, that home slider, and I'm going to say focus. So whenever the user focuses on a particular, on the slider, then we want our nav controls to actually show. So this is for the focus action. So I can also say whenever the user hover like this, let me remove the comma, and inside, so I'm going to say opacity 1, and then change the visibility. So the visibility is now going to be visible. All right, so that's it. So when I save, if I come back to my website and refresh, the navigation buttons are still not showing, but whenever I hover, you can see that now they are showing on my web page. Okay, so I can also start with the styling of my carousel items. So that will be carousel, that home slider again. Then I'm going to say slider item. Yeah, that's it. So as for the slider item, I need to increase the size, and so before giving the height, let me first work on the background. So that will be background size cover, and background repeat will be no repeat like this, and the next one will be background position. So I will say center. So this is going to make sure that the images that will show will actually focus on the center of the image. All right, let me save. Let me come and refresh. So now you can see the images are focused on the center. So it's now high time for me to add some height so that we're going to see a bigger portion of the image. And I'm going to say 117 pixels. So that's it. And I'm also gonna add some minimum height. So for the minimum height, say 700 pixels, and the position will be relative. Okay, let me refresh. Ta-da! As you can see now, we are having, we can see a bigger portion of the image on the screen. Okay, that's it. So we can choose to add some overlay to the images. And so what we're gonna do here is I will simply copy this, and then I'm gonna remove everything we put inside all the properties, and up here I'm gonna say before, yeah, then inside I'm gonna say position absolute, top will be 0, left 0 as well, then right will be 0, the last one will be bottom, yeah, bottom 0. So for the background, we are going to be an RGBA. So yeah, that's what we're gonna give it and save. Wait, I need to add content. It'll be empty. And then when we come here, so as you can see, this is gonna add some, some dark overlay. So when I increase here, you will see that it's also going to increase the overlay. Okay, as you can see, the overlay has increased. So I'm going to say 0.1, for example. So the overlay is not going to be too much. So that's it. So now we are going to work on the text, the slider text. As you can see, we are having some text here. We're going to try to bring that down. And one way to do that is to say that we are going to work on our carousel, that home slider, and we're going to say slider item, and then slider text. Yeah. Okay, so now the first thing we're going to say is that we want the color of our text to be white. So FFF, and so we also want to increase the height. So we're going to give it the very same height as the same height we gave the slider item. Yeah, that was it, and 117 pixels. And so it's also going to have the same minimum height of 700 pixels. Yeah, when you come and refresh, so now as you can see, it's now centered. It's now at the middle. Okay, that's what I wanted to say. So we can also work on the title. So on the title, we can say, so I'm gonna copy this, bring it down, remove everything in here, and up here I'm gonna say title. So that's the name of the class we gave. If you remember, in our HTML we added a class that we called title. So I'm gonna say font size for this is going to be 40 pixels, and then its color will be white. Okay, and refresh. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing for the tag h1. So up here I'm going to say h1. We'll remove this. So I'm going to say font size, that will be 40 pixels as well. The color will be white. And as for the line height, I'm going to say line height. Do I actually need the line height? Let me simply say it like this. I remove. No. Let me go back to my index.html. Okay, I'm going to style this the cursive. There's a class we called cursive, and I'm simply going to give it a font family. So I would say font family, and we imported a specific font. We said Sacramento. Okay, so this is a font I imported from Google Font. You can get free fonts on Google Font website. All right, so when I refresh, yeah, as you can see, it has actually changed my the styling of the title. And so for now, I'm going to remove the line height. I will say that the font weight will be 800 pixels. Okay, and let me choose to transform that. I'm going to transform the text to uppercase and see how it's going to look like. So now when we put the text in uppercase, this is how it's looking like. All right. I can also make this important, yeah, to enforce that. All right. So I actually do want my H1 to be responsive. So I'm going to add some media query. So that will be media. Max width of the screen will be 991 pixel, and I'm gonna say our carousel that slider item, and then that slider text. So and then h1. Then inside I'm simply gonna say that the font size must be equal to 40 pixels. All right, so what else can I style? I'm going to work on the paragraph tag. So I'm gonna copy, say like this. Instead of h1, I'm gonna say p. Let me remove all this. Now I can simply change some stuff. So font size, I'm gonna say 20 pixels. The color, I'm gonna leave it to white. As for the font weight, I'm gonna say 30 and refresh. I need to remove the text transformer. So let me refresh that. That's not picking actually. Refresh. So now what we actually going to do is that we are going to add some line height. Okay, here for the H1, I'm going to say that the line height will be equal to 1.2. Okay, and down here, I'm also going to add some line height that will be equal to 1.5. And then the font weight will be 300 pixels, and then refresh. So that's it. So the next thing we're going to say that we want to style the our carousel home slider, and the dots, that's whole dots like this. And we want to give it the position absolute for it to show actually, because as you can see here, it's showing down, it's not showing on the carousel image. So we have to give it position absolute, and also want to be a little bit up. So we will say bottom 100 pixels, and its width will be 100%. Okay, so when we save, if we come here and refresh, now you can see it's showing on the carousel image. Okay, so we are going to tile this a single dot now. So that will be our carousel home slider, that how that, and that how that for a single dot. So the width will be 10 pixels, the height will be 10 pixels as well, the margin will be 5 pixels, the border radius, I'll say 50% for the border, that will be 2 pixels solid, and RGBA will be 255, comma 255, comma 255, comma 0.5. Okay, and the outline will be none. To enforce that, we will say that it's import. The position relative, and we need to add some transition. So WebKit transition, we 0.3 seconds, all is okay. So as usual, I'm simply gonna copy, paste it here again. And this one, I'm going to say O. And as for this, I'm going to remove and say transition. Okay, so that's it. I am going to copy this, so because I need some properties. So I'm going to say, for example, when my dot, a particular dot is active, I want its border to be 2 pixels solid and white. Okay, I can also say that if it's active, I want the span tag, the element of the span tag, to have a background of white, and save. So after that, I can say that let me come to my site. When I refresh, as you can see, I have my dot. Now here, the next thing I'm going to style is going to be the button, my slide item button. So I call the button, I gave it the class of primary, button primary. Yeah, so I will say that the color of the text on that button will be white, and then the border width will be 2 pixels. As for the background, that will be white, red. So I can also add the border color of the same red color here, and then the border radius will be 16 pixels. So for the padding, that will be 10 pixels, and the margin top will also be 10. Then let me save. So when I refresh, now this is how my button is looking like. Okay, so when I click, it takes me to the next slider item. And I click. So notice that it's looping because we specified here that loop is true and autoplay is also true. So if I don't put my cursor on the slider item, you will see that it's going to loop over and over again on my slider item. So guys, that was it concerning how you could design this nice looking header, which is being made of a navigation bar and a slider. Okay, so I used Bootstrap and then our carousel to make that. So if you want to know more about how to use our carousel, I have a video on this channel, so you can just check it out. So thanks a lot for viewing. I hope this video was informative, and please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. And if you have any question, please just write it down in the comments, and I'm going to do my best to reply to them. So let's meet in the next video. Bye.